Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up podcast, brought to you by World Geekly News. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and his name is Lewis Crawford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm here. I'm very happy.
Good. I'm glad. They are mutually exclusive, though. You could be very happy and not here, or here and tremendously sad.
Yeah, there's many combinations of kind of
of here and feelings.
feelings and emotions that can go together.
You had a good week?
Yeah, really good.
Been
Yourself?
playing anything?
Oh, I've been playing many things. As always, I see. I'm terrible. I pick up games and I play them for half an hour, and then pick up another game and play it for half an hour. And it always gets to this place where someone asks me what I've been playing, and the answer's like Spider-Man, God of War, a game called Burly Men at Sea. Just so many games, Destroy Humans, everything.
Cool. I've been still rocking Red Dead. The reason I was 10 minutes late to start the show was because I was finishing a mission. It was a very good mission. That and Pokemon as usual, but nothing that would surprise you, frankly. Let's start the show in that case, and we start as we do every week with the news. Your first item on the news list this week is that YouTube has arrived on the Nintendo Switch. I don't think this is a particularly huge thing, although my girlfriend Jess, who has a Switch, kind of would agree to disagree with me on that one. She's been quite urgent to download it when she heard the patch was coming out. So, if you've got one, get it. If you don't, maybe get a Switch. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see it. It's cool to kind of see them taking the device in that kind of direction, where they're kind of taking those apps that exist on similar mobile and devices.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things that you need on everything, right? Like, it's just so universal. And that's why you should definitely tune in via YouTube to Games Up Podcast now on your Nintendo Switch. That was a bad plug. All right, the next item. The next item on the list this week is that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is supposedly hitting PS4 in December. All the stuff is there, all the certifications, all the this, that, the other. Seems like it's happening.
Oh, great!
I gotta be honest,
It's
I'm
cool.
still
I guess
surprised at this one.
at least people want to play it. Can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I'm still surprised it's happening. I really thought Xbox would be gunning harder to keep that one. But yeah, there it is. It's hitting PS4 in December. I think now the more interesting question that comes out of this is, what does Bluehole look like going forward? Because I really thought that Microsoft would be gunning for that studio. The way they were working with them, it had those kind of optics.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Let's see what the future of Bluehole lies. Number 3 on the list this week is that Activision are supposedly not happy with the sales of Destiny 2. Now, the last time they were unhappy with the sales of Destiny, they sort of overhauled the game quite a bit, added a new system, added new content, this, that, the other, changed what the past was going to look like and what was going to be included in them. But I don't know that they can keep doing that for Destiny, especially as the investment grows and grows with each iteration.
Yeah, so I mean, I heard that the main problem with Destiny 2 was the kind of it didn't kind of receive good long-term feedback at the start, and I don't know if they've managed really to shift that at all. With Destiny 1, it was like they improved it, and then people were expecting something else for Destiny 2. And I remember initially it looked great, like the kind of the initial feedback was really good, and then like as I just remember like 2 weeks later, it was sort of I don't know. And then the thing is, if that's what you get when you look up the game, then you're not kind of persuaded to pick it up.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think one of the problems is that with any kind of Bungie game, they're very, very good at world building and concept making, and they're very good at putting it in front of you in terms of the game. So while you're looking at the marketing for Destiny, while you're looking at the trailers and the artwork and this, that, the other, it's very easy to see how it has the possibility to be a really interesting entry in a kind of MMO thing. But I think what's actually put on the palette when you buy the game differs enough that I would be remiss about buying it outright.
Yeah, and I also just wonder whether this is kind of not happy in like it's sold hundreds of thousands, or not happy that it's like not selling billions, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, we know that it's sold well. We know that it's fairly consistent in terms of its active player base. So, but yeah, you're right in saying that Destiny 1 went from like it's a bit crap to one of those success stories where people really jump back on with it. And so I imagine this is a case of, oh, it hasn't done the same thing. We're disappointed in those sales. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds likely.
Publishers are weird like that, especially publishers that are inherently close to developing the game, like Bungie Activision. That's a weird kind of relationship to work around.
Yeah.
Number 4 on the list this week is that despite its fairly lengthy delay, not a huge delay I suppose, but fairly sort of late in the game delay, Spyro is coming out this week, I believe, or maybe next. I can't quite remember. I'm very excited for it. But you will still need to patch Spyro 2 and 3 into the game. You will not get them on the disc. Lewis, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, so one of the things I did hear is that this game's apparently going to be like 75 to 80 gigabytes, and that does go over the limit of the Blu-ray disc.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big reasons why it's a download, and not kind of because they're not finished or anything like that. Now, admittedly, I do have to wonder why it's such a large game.
Yeah, I'm kind of not surprised. Like, Crash is, what, 30? 30
Yeah.
and a bit gigs? And you said it yourself, Spyro's a lot more challenging than Crash in that the worlds are a lot more open. I'd say there's probably a lot more content in them. There are big hub worlds. The dragons are all individually designed now. You know, they are technically more challenging games. And I think that makes sense that there's, like, it doesn't fit on the disc. I also am not surprised at this piece of news. Like, Spyro was delayed late into the game. There's no way that they had the time to redesign all the assets, restructure the discs, print on all to the discs, and get it to go gold in time for actual release. I was always glad that Spyro 2 and 3, frankly, were patches, because I think that allows them to be bigger sizes and less constrained in that sense. It sucks if you've got a bad internet connection, but also install off the disc for Spyro 1 and download in the background for Spyro 2 and 3 while you're playing it. You won't be finished that game by the time they're finished downloading. So
Yeah, very true.
all right, next up on the news this week is number 5. Jeff Keighley has hyped up the Game Awards once again, saying that the Game Awards 2018 will feature the biggest lineup ever in terms of new game announcements. And frankly, Lewis, I'm inclined to agree with him.
Yeah, no, I think last year the Game Awards, I think it's really the first year that I really took notice of it, and it was a good year to take notice of it, because although it did go on for like 3.5 hours, and I seem to remember tuning in at like 12 or 1 and ending at 4, which was a little rough. But it did have some of the, like, it's getting to a point where it rivals some of the stuff at E3, you know, so I think last year, well, it's a longer one, but I think last year it's had a lot of stuff in it, and I'm really excited to see what's this year.
I think based on the rumours that we're seeing this year will rival E3. I think the last couple of years there's been some stuff to rival E3, but it's not been consistent across the board. This year I could see it rivaling E3 for sure.
Can we stop pretending it's the Game Awards, though? Like, last year was kind of like 5% the Game Awards, and then the rest of it was announcement and trailers and talks.
This is exactly the thing. Is I kind of wish they'd split them up. Like, obviously, I'm not Jeff Keighley. I don't understand how this shit works or how hard it is to make it happen. And you've got to give people, you know, the reveals around the awards, because apparently that's the only way they tune in. But I would love. So there are two really cool things happening around that time. There's this, which is the Game Awards, a really big ceremony, a big thing for gaming, and then the announcements related to that. But there's also the Kind of Funny Games Showcase. Now, that might sound a bit, kind of funny, yeah. But what they did is, they heard that PSX wasn't happening this year, so they reached out to loads of developers and said, we're going to put on a press conference instead. If you want to work with us and announce your game, come and talk to us. And they've got like 50 games to announce. And I would love if Keighley said, okay, so let's start the show off with a big press conference of this developer is here, they want to announce this dev's here, they want to show you this. That's done. Now let's award the best stuff from last year. I would love to see that format because I do think it gets in the way of the awards a little bit.
Yeah, I think last year was a very good show in terms of like new announcements and games, but then at the same time there was huge bits of it they were just like and the award for this is that. Okay, moving on. Here's a new trailer. And then I think at one point they announced like the 3 winners for something just all at once. But it was like, this one wins this one wins this, and this one wins that. Okay, next thing.
Yeah, they did like an Oscars thing where it's like, the best director goes to this person, and best makeup, best visual effects, and best sound goes to this, that's the other.
Yeah.
Like they do a bunch of off-screen awards, which is kind of a shame, but I get why.
And there was another one where they finished the show and everyone went, you haven't announced like best multiplayer. And it wasn't announced in the show.
And best esports as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
So like I kind of see that point of like, if you're gonna maybe make it 2 things or something, I understand the concept, like you need to kind of do both, but I think last year maybe it could have been organized better for the show.
Yeah.
For the actual like awards part of it.
Although, you know, Keighley says every year that he's trying something new, and this year, again, he said he's trying something new, so I think he will find that sweet spot eventually. Whatever happens, major props to him, because he is... He's one of the best figureheads for gaming that we have. And I hope that this show eventually becomes the Oscars or the Academy Awards or whatever it is for us. Next up on the news is the rumour that Death Stranding is now in a polished phase. Lewis, I don't believe it.
I don't know. I don't know. I think will it be announced?
Making that one mountain look real nice.
Yeah. So the rumor is that it's now in like a playable from start to finish kind of state, and it's now just being kind of improved. And I don't know. The thing is, I think that we're starting to see more and more of it to a point where, you know, we first saw gameplay, which admittedly was very lax, but they recently put out a thing that kind of shows that it has boss fights. I think that there's been a lot held back, and I'm wondering whether it's going to be at the Game Awards.
Oh, it'll be at the Game Awards. Oh, there is no question about that. Like, even if Jeff Keighley dresses up like Norman Reedus and paints himself in oil, it will be at the Game Awards because that is what Keighley does. But I will be honest, I feel like you could make a nice bale out of the straws of hay that are being clutched at here. Like, this is one of the things I kind of think Death Stranding could be a really interesting game, and I kind of think it has some interesting potential, but I do think to some extent it's cheapened a little bit by the constant need for knowing where Kojima is with it. Like, it's a weird thing to give an auteur, in inverted commas, this much money and say, go do your thing, but then also, like, everyone wants to know where it is. Like, it's one of those it'll be done when it's done things.
Oh, yeah.
And that
very
sucks,
true.
kind of. All right, now that we've put a dampener on that, the rest of the news comes from XO18, which was held in Mexico City this week. Xbox put out a kind of press conference, kind of show called Inside Xbox, which is a thing they do every now and then for Xbox announcements, kind of their versions of a Nintendo Direct, which we'll get onto in a bit. So let's start with those announcements. Phil Spencer first, we promised to fix the MS Store for PC games.
Oh, it's a lot. It's a long time coming, this one. The MS Store. I mean, I don't actually fully know the ins and outs of why people don't use it, but I know that a lot of PC gamers do not like it. But it's also why they've been pushing some of their games to Steam, I think. Yeah,
it is.
Because of the current state of the store.
Because the MS Store just doesn't have the install base or attach rate.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, like, I've nothing against it, but I have heard a lot of kind of optimization issues and struggling to find things you've got installed and lots of different things that I'm hoping can get fixed.
I mean, ultimately, this is just going to become xCloud, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, ultimately, you'll now that they've announced keyboard and mouse support, which we'll get onto a bit later, ultimately, this is just going to be a case of buy it on the Xbox Store, whatever you have it on, start playing it on one thing, play it on another with your peripheral of choice.
Yeah. It's a good way to go.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, it probably won't be quite as optimized or perform quite as well as Steam, perhaps, because, you know, the games that are put out for Steam are not put out for... They're not put out in the same way they are for a console, where they perform one way and that's it. Unless you play PUBG, in which case you can still get access to all the PC settings. You just can't change a lot of them up to high end. But, yeah... That's how I see this going, and I'm kind of all for it. I'm much more likely to play something on my PC if the only hurdle I have to jump through is installing xCloud. That being said, I'm interested to see what they mean by cleaning it up, or improving it, because I don't know. It seems like a really mammoth task rather than just like they described it on the show as tinkering, and it feels like tinkering is not really what the MS game storefront needs.
Yeah, I mean, because the problem is as well is it's not like some people have some issues with it. It's that the majority of people don't use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's not a tinker. It needs to be properly changed.
It's akin to Origin on PC. It's just that they don't hold their games behind it anymore. Now they put them on Steam as well. Next up on the list of things that happened, well, we got new trailers for Just Cause 4, which I think look really cool.
Yeah, no, I think I'm quite impressed with how the graphics have come along from that one, actually, considering that Just Cause 3 isn't that old. I kind of expected us to see, considering the gap between Just Cause 2 and 3, I expected to see I expected to see Just Cause 4 on the next console.
Okay, interesting.
Now, I know this is... not new news, but I think having seen what it looks like, I'm quite excited, actually.
Yeah, I think it was a very good trailer. It was well paced. It was, very cinematic. The game's hopefully going to be better than Just Cause 3. We'll see, I guess. We also got... I know you go.
Okay. I don't know. I don't think there's been enough time for it to be very different. I think it's going to be what every Just Cause game is. Kind of fun to mess around, and then it's... Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but I hope it's going to be the case of Saints Row 4 versus Saints Row 3, where they're designed on a fun to mess around in way, but it's the little quality of life things that will make the difference. Like... to me, performance was a big thing in Just Cause 3. It was so slow to load in, and you had to spend quite a while doing things to get where you wanted. It didn't have a difficulty curve, as it were. It had like an accessibility curve, and with a bit of time, the new engine they've been talking about, they might be moving in the right direction, but they've got to do a bit to prove it to me.
Yeah, I think so, and I'll pick it up. Though I do think actually Saints Row is quite an apt comparison considering kind of the direction they're taking it in. Because I do think that they're taking it down that route of like, let's just try and do silly stuff. It could be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I kind of like that they're putting a serious reason in the story, but at the end of the day, it's just like oh wow, look how crazy this is, and if it's great fun to play, great. I'm totally down for that. I'm totally down for throwing cars into tornadoes and this, that, the other. If it's not great to play, I will have exactly the same problems with it I do with Saints Row. We also got a new trailer for Crackdown, which was just Terry Crews shouting at the fucking screen for 30 seconds.
He's shouting at himself for most of the trailer.
Yeah, I love Terry Crews. The dude is an absolute upstanding dude in the industries, in any creative industry. He's an absolutely upstanding gentleman. That being said, I don't really see what he's adding to this. I like the idea of him being the player character. That's fine. Or him being a major voice in the player character thing. That's fine. What the fuck was I supposed to take away from that trailer?
Do you know what I think it is though? It's like if you take it like something in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right? He's like an ironic character there because he's very strong, but he's very like
Feminine,
yeah,
or like,
scared, I guess, and
yeah, okay, yeah, feminine isn't the right word. Then he is very strong with very delicate tendencies.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry about that. Our audio cut out for 2 seconds there, so we'll just summarize what we said in the meantime. We were talking about Terry Crews, and basically we just said it's weird that he is the main marketing for this game when it's being done so unironically, and when the game looks so good. It's a shame that they've made as much progress as it is. And whilst Terry Crews is a great person, he doesn't really fit marketing this, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So we also got a trailer for Metro, which showed off a pretty ridiculous special edition.
Yeah, inside a barrel.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, imagine getting this. Like, imagine being a giant Metro fan, getting this, and then just sticking a barrel in the corner of your room, or your living room, or your whatever. People come around and they're like, oh, you've got a barrel in the room. You're like, yeah, it's a video game thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very, very weird. I mean, it's funny, I guess.
Kind of. Like, it would be funny if it were like the cheaply produced part of it, but you're paying quite a lot of money for a real barrel.
Yeah, very true.
It's weird. We also got a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3, which had exactly the same music as all the other trailers.
Yeah, no, I wish. I don't know. I'm getting to a point now where I wish I'd show less of it. Like,
Yep.
I like that they're kind of showing that it's got loads of different like Disney worlds in there, but like each trailer just has the same like music and the same like generic section at the end of it.
Well, and also, like, because the trailer has the same music, it has mostly the same rhythm as all the others. So, like, it's not like Japanese games market very weirdly to us here in the West, and Metal Gear is a perfect example of this, where they used really elongated trailers and long, focused bits of music in those trailers, but each one was different, so the rhythm of each trailer was different. So it was like, oh, this one's fun and exciting and upbeat, and that, but this one is exactly the same, like 30 seconds of one Disney World, 30 seconds of the next, here's some Pirates of the Caribbean, look, it's Winnie the Pooh, and it's like, that's great, but it's not exciting me about the game in any way.
Yeah, I agree. It seems very weird, and it's having kind of the opposite effect, I think, for me.
Oh really? Where it's overhyping you?
Yeah. I think it's just that like I just need like the release date to come, you know. Like as in I just need to.
Oh, to the date itself, just
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then finally, we got what was easily the best trailer of the day in Minecraft.
Yeah, this was a very interesting kind of handcrafted look trailer.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, no, I really liked it.
It was a handcrafted trailer comparing cats and pandas, which is the new Minecraft update, and how it was telling a story of how they lived in peace after a napping war. But genuinely, like, the tone of the writing was great, and the voiceover was great, and the look of it was great. Not a shame, but weird that like the trailer made out of wool with no video game in it is the best video game trailer of the day. But
yeah,
it was really good.
Yeah, no, I really liked it, and cats and pandas, cool, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We had cats. That's the bit that I was confused about. But maybe I just haven't played in so long. I don't know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, you're right. We did have cats. That's very true, actually. Maybe they've just given them different behaviors and like kind of reworked them.
Yeah, I suppose
That'd be
so.
cool. I'd be down for that. I'd actually love if cats came along and like attacked the things in your house. Like you could domesticate a cat and bring it into your house, but there is a chance that thing will just wreck shit.
Yeah. Just bring you dead stuff. It'd be
great. It brings in dead Minecraft parrots to your house all the time.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Then we saw a trailer for Sea of Thieves Arena Mode. We're kind of split on what this is. You think this is Battle Royale?
Yeah, I think it's kind of their avenue into it at the very least. I think like they're trying to kind of incorporate something like that.
I could see it being the avenue for sure. I think to me it looked immediately more like a traditional multiplayer arena thing, but yeah, I could see it evolving into that if it takes off. Looks cool. Sea of Thieves, I think, is still a bit of an acquired thing. It's got a great community now, and those people who love it really love it. I just don't quite think it's like something I'd be able to jump into.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, I guess the arena mode is what if it is like a classical kind of, you all start on different areas of the map, multiplayer um, thing. It's what we kind of thought the game was when it first was announced.
Yeah,
That's kind of the way that they sold it, was almost like a esports kind of 5v5 thing. From the very first trailer, it was kind of like that. Yeah, this is cool. I agree, though. It's an acquired taste. I'm kind of surprised that they're pushing for it so hard at the moment.
I mean, it is doing well in relativity, but it is doing well, and it's. I mean, to be honest, I'm just glad to see Rare making something that genuinely seems to have an audience behind it and is cared for and has their tone to it again. It's nice to see Rare back on what they do well.
Yeah, I agree.
Then we got some news that a number of the classic Final Fantasy games are coming to Xbox in some way. Now, I believe this was Final Fantasy 7, 9, 10, and 10-2, right?
Yes.
Nice. I imagine this will be a repackaging. This will be like a kind of like Mega Man Classic Edition, where there's a bunch of them in a hub and you pick which one to play and play through it.
Maybe. I'm not too sure, actually.
Oh, really? What do you think?
I can imagine them doing them separately. Because, I mean, there's no like precedent collection of them together.
Interesting.
They have been like redone on the PC and things like that.
Oh, have they? Okay. Because, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I was thinking it would be a bit weird if they were packaging the same PlayStation 1 game up on its own for Xbox. Like, that'd be a bit odd. But, yeah, okay, if there's some precedent for doing it before, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's good to see, like kind of embracing the Japanese gaming as well on Xbox.
Yeah, they've been pushing hard for that, and I've got a lot of respect for how they're doing it.
It's good to have Square there, I think.
It is good to have Square there, although this was the week that Square had a huge loss and made massive layoffs in Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird time for Square.
The weird thing about this announcement, I felt, so obviously they had a translator there, and they had what happened was, so they announced Kingdom Hearts 3, and they went, tell us about the origins of Kingdom Hearts. How did this all start? On Xbox stage, and they talked about it and he was like, we met in an elevator and all this. And, you go, do you have any news for us? And you're expecting them to go, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 remastered on the Xbox One. And that would have been the logical conclusion of this happening, But then no, we got the Final Fantasy games instead, which is cool, but very unexpected from my perspective, from my point of view.
Oh yeah, for sure. This a lot of people were saying that the one that's more needed is Kingdom Hearts, the collection, because they put a collection out earlier this year on PS4 where the games already exist. And it's nice to have the packaging. It's nice to be able to pay once and have access to all these games, but it doesn't make any sense that game is on one and not the other, unless there's licensing issues around it, I guess. I thought this was going to be the Final Fantasy 14 announcement. I thought that would finally make its way over to the platform. Didn't. It was it was weird. It was really weird. I also thought it was really interesting, according to him and the story he told, that Disney pitched Square rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I thought it was quite fascinating.
So, that was all that. Then we got a number of announcements of Game Pass games. So, Pubbage is now on Game Pass. I think this is a way of... this is a targeted attack with it coming to PS4 very soon.
Yeah. Speaking of the whole thing in general, just very quickly.
Yeah.
It was mostly Game Pass. That was the kind of the big push of this whole thing.
I mean, Game Pass is like the thing they're pushing, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, Game Pass is a success for them, and the more they push it, the more they set precedent for future games to come to it. I think one of the big problems is that they don't have the only AAAs they have launching day and date are their own. And right now they don't have a library of their own games, which is of any interest. Like, Crackdown day and date is big. That's really big, especially after the amount of years they've spent playing it, making it, because there's no fucking way they're making the money back on it. Like, I'm probably going to get Game Pass that day to play Crackdown, because if it's not good, I'm not buying the game. But at the same time, how many other people are doing that would have bought the game in some form?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the big kind of issues with the Game Pass
And now,
concept.
In the future, with the studios they bought, which we'll talk about in a bit, that could be huge, because they could very easily be making games that rival Sony, very easily with the talent they now have. And if those games are coming out day and date to Game Pass, yeah, okay, then they're making a case for it. And investing in it now and pushing it now to get those hardcore users on board to make it more of a well-maintained base for when those games launch, okay, I could see them pushing for next gen. That being said, like, there were 16 games announced for Game Pass, and a bunch of them looked cool, but the one that would make me play Game Pass at the minute is PUBG, which I bought a year ago because that's when it came out. And I think they do need to be, obviously they can't be too careful souring people because they want people to buy games at the end of the day, but I don't know, they do need to be a little careful about when and how they bring things to Game Pass that have come out recently, rather than promising support for stuff in the future.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see what happens with Halo and Gears on Game Pass.
I mean, I think they've confirmed that Gears 5 is day and date.
Okay.
Actually, that's a point. That's a big one. That's a real big one. Is Gears 4 on Game Pass?
It does say it's going to be at launch, actually.
Good.
Okay. I'll believe it when I see it, though.
Well, if all this has you interested in Game Pass, if our talk of what Game Pass will do and the support and the games that are on it will do, you should pay attention to the show in the next couple of weeks. You should pay attention. It's going to be real good. And finally, actually, just before finally, they also announced keyboard and mouse support. I think this is great. I can't wait to play some things with keyboard and mouse, some more hardcore things, some inventory management things. That'll be great. The big one that they announced was Fortnight. And the thing I absolutely love about all of this is that Fortnite will have separate queuing for PC, keyboard and mouse, and controllers. Perfect. I've played cross-play with PC people. It made me do horrible things to my controller. So the idea of just queuing them separately is lovely. Yes, please.
Yeah, no, and it's really needed, because being a gamer that switches between them, there is a huge difference between playing a first-person shooter game on PC and on console.
Yeah.
And it's basically like, your average survival time is like quartered on PC. Even if you're good, it's like every game runs a lot faster.
Yeah.
On PC. I bought Titanfall on PC, and I go from being this like great player on the console to being like really bad, like instantly dying all the time from somewhere no one knows.
I beta tested, well, not tested, but I beta played Titanfall when it was just before it came out on Origin on the PC, and I fucking hated it. And then on PC, on Xbox, it came out, and I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's a very good thing. It's more support for more things everywhere, please. And then the big one, the topic of the week this week, Lewis, is that Microsoft bought more studios. I did not expect them to buy more studios. They bought In Exile Entertainment, who are a specialist, I would say smaller RPG maker. Some of the stuff they've made so far is kind of cartoony or top-downy or 2D-ish. This is really interesting. They seem to be investing quite heavily in RPGs, depending on the things we've heard, because apparently Fable is an RPG that's being made at Playground, and that's been in the works for at least a year and a half at this point. So, interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think so. In Exile, I'll be honest, I find it quite a weird choice.
Uh-huh.
It's not like there's things that we kind of knew would be coming up. It wasn't one of the ones I had expected, but it's cool to see, and hopefully, like they can use the studio to do some cool things.
Yeah, I kind of like that they've picked a studio that we didn't expect, because I hope that means we get games that we don't expect. To me, I
Yeah.
imagine In Exile their games will be positioned more like Ori and the Blind Forest or something like that, where those games are, less console killers and more not quiet releases, but they're more kind of summertime releases. They're the kind of thing that aren't going for a holiday sale, but are core to the Xbox audience as well. And I'm really excited for that. That's great.
Yeah, totally.
And they also bought Obsidian.
Yeah, this is kind of one of the big ones.
This is fucking huge.
Yeah, but it's something that's kind of really good to see because some news came out very recently that Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity 2 didn't do that well. Well, I think it did abysmally, actually, by all accounts. So it's really good to see that they are going to be able to like continue, from my perspective, because it's a studio that's kind of very close to me. So yeah, I'm very excited about what comes from this, and I wonder kind of what they've kind of based their want of Obsidian from, because Obsidian did make, or one of the people that were involved in making Skyforge, one of the big kind of free-to-play games. They were part of the people to make the MMORPG Skyforge, and I kind of wonder whether that's something that Microsoft might be trying to go after.
Ooh, I disagree with you.
Ooh.
I would hazard a guess. This is entirely conjecture, so don't quote me on it. I would hazard a guess that the discussions of this came out of the backwards compatibility team, because Microsoft had to do quite a lot of work on KOTOR when they brought it to backwards compatibility and improved it quite notably. And we know that Microsoft have to work with those teams to turn the code into something that's compatible with the new Xbox. And I would imagine that the discussions about the future of Obsidian as a studio and what they want to do came out of those discussions of how their code works and how they make games with the backwards compatibility team. All conjecture, but I'd put a wee bit of money on it.
Okay, that definitely could be very interesting.
Either way, though, Microsoft is making money moves.
Yeah, it's good to see. Like, I think this is really what they need going into the next gen.
Oh yeah,
because I think like it's. This is my perspective, and you'll probably have something to say on it. But I think like in this conference kind of showed it a fair bit. Like one of my issues with Microsoft at the moment, whenever you see a Microsoft hype reel, you know what I mean? You see like the best on Xbox, and then you see kind of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Tomb Raider and all these games. I'm trying to think of some others, but kind of games that each year we see a hype reel at E3, and it's games that you can play anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, and I it pains me because you compare it to the Sony ones, and it's like, here's God of War and Spider-Man, and you do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
it's something that will change, and I really hope that it does, to be honest, because I want to see it like a 60-second thing that is, here's like Halo and Gears, but here's some other thing and some other thing and some other thing.
Yes, but I would argue that this is a thing. So you're right in the hype trailers at the minute for Microsoft are a case of Xbox One X, Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But this was exactly the same for Sony before the Xbox One X came out. In that year where in the 1 year where the exclusives fell on Microsoft's side, in the year of Gears, Tomb Raider, something else, like Forza and something else, I can't remember what it was, but they had one each month. That year's hype trailer was those games, and for Sony it was COD. I think it was COD, Destiny, Arkham Knight, something else. You know, they were quite notorious for bringing up even GTA. They announced that at E3, for fuck's sake. Like, they were quite notorious for taking games that you can play anywhere and saying, look, we have built those partnerships. We've put them best on our console. And to some extent, that was why the Scorpio was made and released, was very much to target that bad messaging of stuff doesn't play well on Xbox. But you are right in that this is them setting up for a future where their focus is, here is 10 IPs for the next 4 years that you will care about. And I'm really excited about that. I think that's my thing, is that I might be quite negative about it, but I think that's the takeaway from it, is that it's like, you know, I want to see, here's 10 things, you know. Because I do think, you're right, at first it wasn't, but I do think at the moment when you compare kind of the hype trailers for the two consoles, you do have quite like stark differences. Oh yeah.
And that will change with these new studios. It might take time, but I think that's, you know, going to put them on the right footing when it comes to the next console.
Based on what we heard this weekend, I think we're probably going to start seeing things around E3. They were saying that, like, you know, some of these projects are down the line, some of them are closer than we think. I don't think they're closer than we think as in next year, but I think they will start to tease the next gen at E3. I imagine we will see the first bits of Fable. We've heard for a bit now that the Hellblade Senua's team, I can't remember what they're called. We've heard for a while now that what they've been working on is a little further along than we expected as well. And to be honest, that would be a really good E3 next year. Like, Crackdown coming out and it doesn't look awful, that's good. Gears 5 looks fantastic, really excited for that. Whatever the next Forza thing is, if we get to see Fable, that would be a good start. If we get to see what Hellblade is, that would be a good start. More of Ori. That's starting to set them up as an actual, okay, now we're competing again. And I'm disappointed to have been a part of the generation where beta testing for them was basically the console. But also, you know, this generation wasn't exactly lacking in third parties. And if it leads to stronger competition down the line, that's all good for me. A world where one of the best video game makers in the UK is competing with Kojima for, you know, a damn good RPG that year. All right, I'll take that.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And, you know, I've said for a long time that I'd buy an Xbox if I felt I had a good reason for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do stick to that. Like, I think, like, if it's a world where we could set up and go, here, look at all these kind of studios we have and we use them and they're all doing cool things, then it's very much, I'll see myself into that, you know, camp. Though I'm still slightly tenuous because Microsoft does have its fair share of closed studios, and I think they announced at the start of this generation they bought 5 studios, and I think one of those studios has done something. Okay, like I think they announced that they had 5 studios, and I think 4 of them are. I think one of them makes mobile games, one of them makes the Microsoft like games, you know, the new versions of Minesweeper.
I'm trying to think of the 5 you'd mean, and what I can think of is Rare, which makes sense. Lionhead, who are closed. The team that makes Forza, but not Playground, the other one. The Coalition, who were previously Blackwater or something like that, and then there's one more. But yeah, they have this generation they have closed a lot of studios, and they have screwed their IP a bit. I imagine they had to. You don't get the money to buy Obsidian by maintaining companies that are dying, but it is a shame that they died in any form. It would have been really nice, frankly, to see Lionhead restructured into a company that makes sense for Fable. But
Yeah, yeah, and I think
they seem so much healthier as a result of their decisions, and I did not think I would say that a year ago.
I think the other thing here though is that they now have kind of a huge collection of IPs and
Mm-hmm.
franchises from things that maybe weren't initially thought of, I guess. From the things they've bought, they now have, access to a load more IPs than they used to have. And so I'm excited to see if they do anything with them. But then at the same time, I hope that in some ways they don't and we see some new things.
That's what I was going to say. I also think they've bought the vested talent to make a new IP work. I mean, when you think, the only 2, 3, 4 new IPs this generation were Sea of Thieves, Sunset, Ori. That doesn't speak, maybe Scream Ride at a push. That doesn't speak particularly well for them. And I think they have to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I'm just, like you, I'm just kind of looking forward to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. My only note to them, if you're listening to this, Mr. Spencer, my only note to you would be go and study a Nintendo Direct, because that show did not need to be 2.5 fucking hours long. Like, one of the things we rag on about with Japanese games and publishers quite often is that they have this tendency to focus on one thing about a game and show all of it. But the flip side is true of Western games, where they show very little and make it the biggest thing in the world. And something that Nintendo Directs do very well is pass out announcements with the time they need. Here's a DLC, here's a trailer, here's a DLC, here's a trailer, here's 40 minutes of Smash Brothers. And this show could have been an Xbox Direct, and I think it would have had a lot more punch if it did. Here's Metro's Special Edition, here's a very short trailer, here's Forza's downloadable content, here's PUBG's next patch, here's the Game Pass trailer, here's 30 minutes of studios.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I think there was a load of weird things, I think. Like the Game Pass announcement started with the biggest ones and ended with the most indie ones.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a great choice of pacing. Because it kind of, and I don't mean too much offense, but it was like, here's the 3 big games and here's 10 others, and then here's some more. It was a weird way of pacing it, but I kind of agree with you, is that it didn't need to be 2 hours long. There was some stuff in it that maybe just didn't need to be as long as it was. And there was some awkward talking cringe sessions, which you can't have a conference without. It's one of the rules. God, it was some really awkward stuff. And some of the presenters said some stuff that they probably weren't meant to say. Like some negative stuff. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable in its own way.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, was Mexico City's XO18. It was pretty good. It could have done with being a bit shorter, but the big announcements at the end were fucking big announcements. With that being said, thank you very much for listening. We really, really appreciate it. And you can catch us here every week at 6:30 on Monday, and much, much earlier that day, so you can listen to it at your lunchtime or on your way to work or whenever you really choose to on iTunes. We are brought to you by World Geekly News. You should go to them and read their things, because they're cool and lovely people. And also, I'm going to publish some stuff with them this week, and the Overwatch review will be going up. So it's all good. You should go and look at those things. We will see you next week, as ever. And as I said, if you're interested in Game Pass things, you should stay tuned. Cool things. See you next week. Like us on all the socials. We're at Games Upcast and everything. And we'll see you then. Until then, Lewis Crawford.
Games up.
Nice.